Although today is Sunday and not Thursday, I, Zak Wolf, am still doing one of my technology throwback videos for you all. This comes up Apple announcing recently that their 2012 Unibody 13-inch MacBook Pro is now officially obsolete, as it's been off the market for over 7 years now. Yes, you heard me right, how I said a 2012 Unibody MacBook Pro. They continued making the 13-inch model for like 4 years without even updating it much. Reason why they made that was because it was for people who wanted more power than the MacBook Air, but didn't want to spring for a more expensive Retina MacBook Pro. And it was a strong seller too, for that reason, especially with college students and the like. At my workplace, at Electronics Recycling Reselling Company, we get a bunch of these already. I suspect we'll be getting a lot more of them now. I bought this from said company. Power it on. Have the sound off, I guess. That's why it didn't chime. Need to also connect the mouse, since my big two paws don't really work with the magic trackpad that way. Multi-touch trackpad, they call it. Yeah, I've got it's running macOS 11, macOS 10.11, El Capitan on it. In the backdrop there, you see it's the cloud painting from that New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh episode. Look at that. I upgraded this baby with 16 gigabytes of RAM, maxing it out. And it's also got a 1 terabyte SSD in it in place of the spinning hard drive it originally had. Also, to add to the throwback, I'm shooting this on my Canon Vixia HV40 HDV camcorder in the HDV codec, because that was what was kind of the norm at the time when Apple first started making the Unibody MacBook Pros in 2008. Just to show it off a little, now I'm going to do the mandatory outdoors bit. Yeah, now I'm doing this thing out here. A disadvantage with the tape-based DV camcorders I use, I got to use an external microphone attached to it, because the onboard microphone can pick up the whirring of the tape motor. A common problem with consumer and prosumer level tape-based digital camcorders. Also, the external microphone's windscreen is starting to crumble a little, so I'm going to need to replace that. It is a little gusty today, so if you hear the sounds, I'm a little sorry then. Unusually nice today, but in a couple of days, the Christmas snow will be coming down. 2 months too late, as usual. And I'm prepared for it too. Let me show you what I set up out front. Yeah, look at this. I mean, I see fake inflatable snowmen and stuff like that all the time around Christmas when we don't have the snow. But since Valentine's Day is like the new Christmas comes snowy weather, as I mentioned before, I figure I might as well set this up in honor. Look at that. Plus, the neighbors that are getting sick of winter and stuff, this will help kind of take the edge off. Give them a good laugh because they can all relate to it. Yep. Plus, it doesn't have anything specifically to do with Christmas, which is why it will be relevant this month. But just to be sure, I do have a more traditional. I do have another Valentine's Day inflatable set up. fancy, just a nice inflatable candy heart, too. Now I'm back in my usual vlog setup. Yeah, the 2012 Unibody 13-inch MacBook Pro. It was a really popular model during the time it was made up until, well, 2016. Like I said, it was especially popular with college students and anyone else who wanted more power than the MacBook Airs offered at the time, but didn't want to spring for the more expensive Retina MacBook Pros that were more powerful, along with the convenience of having a built-in DVD drive, built-in Ethernet and FireWire ports, too. Even though by that time Thunderbolt was replacing FireWire, as it works the same way, but is a lot faster, and can even be used to stream digital video and audio to a monitor. Since it was co-developed by Apple and Intel, and it was also based on the Mini DisplayPort protocol and also used the same port style. While nowadays, Thunderbolt uses the USB-C protocol and port style. But if anyone were still using a FireWire-enabled HDV camcorder, like I am just for this vlog, at least there was another added convenience without having to spring for a FireWire to Thunderbolt adapter, like with the other Macs. How Apple came out with this in 2012 as part of the announcing the Retina MacBook Pros. Nowadays, well, with the other Macs and the newer ones, you also have to daisy chain this along with the Ethernet to Thunderbolt adapter to a Thunderbolt 2 to 3 adapter like this. But it does work. How FireWire and Thunderbolt can be daisy chained compared to USB. Additionally, those Unibody MacBook Pros are very user service friendly. You unscrew the bottom lid and are greeted by a nice modular design that allows easy access and replacement of the hard drive, RAM, DVD drive, even the battery. Even though Apple, they didn't want users to replace it. But I did, since the original battery in that MacBook Pro is shot. And it's not that difficult compared to the Retina MacBook Pros, where the battery is a floppy design bonded to the case of an adhesive. Even the second generation MacBook Airs had a battery that could be replaced fairly easily with the right know-how. And I have removed a bunch of defective batteries from such MacBook Airs at my workplace, along with the aforementioned Unibody MacBook Pros. But we don't order replacement batteries for them the way I did with the MacBook Pro, along with my 15-inch Unibody 2012 MacBook Pro that I patched from macOS 13 Ventura. It's kind of like one of my backup Mac laptops. Same with my 15-inch Retina 2015 MacBook Pro I used for work and my other Intel Mac needs. Though I may soon need to replace that with a newer Intel MacBook Pro. Yeah, my work in a computer tech job is not too surprising because a lot of furries work in IT or whatever, and I'm no exception. And as for editing this video footage, I could have filmed it on my Canon Vixia HR600 camcorder I normally use for my vlogs and the like. Well, I wanted to go all out with the authenticity and the retro kind of stuff. I mean, sure, when the Unibody MacBook Pros first came out, DV and HDV tapes were still around, as they were initially higher quality than hard drive or flash memory camcorders, or even those accursed DVD camcorders. But once said hard drive tapeless camcorders were able to match or even surpass HDV quality, that's when the tape-based camcorders were finally discontinued. And they already had been for a couple years by the time the last revision of the 13-inch MacBook Pro came out in 2012. But the FireWire port was still there for people still using such camcorders, as to import the digital video footage to a computer required a FireWire connection, as I've said before. And you have to capture the footage in real time as you play it back, and that can take a while. HDV capture sometimes isn't real time either, because compared to standard DV footage, many video applications would often try to slightly compress the footage, which is something most video editing applications could support. With the late 2000s and early 2010s Apple video editing software, it was their Apple Intermediate codec Speaking of which, as part of Throwback, I'm editing this on iMovie 11, the version of Apple's consumer video editing software that was available when this Unibody MacBook Pro model first came out. When I first started using an Intel Mac 12 and a half years ago, I often used that version of iMovie for many simpler projects, and even some YouTube poops that weren't as heavy on effects. So for 10 years now, I've been trying to exclusively stick to Final Cut Pro and Premiere Pro for my YouTube poops. Especially since iMovie 11 also restored a few such useful features that were removed when iMovie was completely rewritten and redesigned in 2007, such as rubber band audio editing, decent audio effects, and it also introduced the trailer creation feature, one-step effects such as instant replay, face detection, and fixing rolling shutter artifacts, and also the few features that aren't on the current iMovie 10 that's been out for 10 years now, such as the ability to work with native 4:3 footage, iDVD chapter marks, and the Space Saver feature that would delete unused footage from your iMovie library, thus reclaiming hard drive space. I don't know what Apple's thinking removing that particular feature, but still it's quite a few caveats compared to iMovie 10. The program often interrupts your work with a status bar as you're importing footage or exporting your project, or even if you were just preparing to color correct or change the speed on your video footage. iMovie 10 lets such processes run in the background so you can keep on working. And the iMovie 11 was still 32-bit only compared to the iMovie 10 being 64-bit. Also, when comparing this MacBook Pro to later models, the screen resolution was limited to 1280 by 800. This was one reason why Apple started making Macs with Retina displays, so smaller text would be sharper and you could use more screen space without everything being all cramped. Also, it's worth noting that when Apple first launched the Unibody MacBook Pros in October 2008, the 13-inch model wasn't even called a MacBook Pro at first, but branded as a regular MacBook alongside their polycarbonate one, despite having the same base model number as its Pro successors. It even had an easily swappable battery, and was the only one to do so. But the lower-end model didn't have a backlit keyboard, and they also lacked the built-in SD card slot and FireWire port its successors had. I remember the controversy of that Unibody MacBook not having FireWire initially, meaning you couldn't use it with DV or HDV camcorders, certain external hard drives, or audio hardware that connected via FireWire, which was unusual because it could handle digital audio and video production just fine, and you couldn't use target disk mode on it. For those unfamiliar, target disk mode is something that was on PowerPC and Intel Macs. When booted into that mode and connected to another Mac via FireWire, you could access the files on it like it's an external hard drive. Later on, target disk mode was revised so it could also be used with Thunderbolt. Like I said, it transferred data just the same fashion as FireWire. And it can also be used with USB-C now. The Apple Silicon Macs, like my M1 MacBook Air I've generally used a lot, don't have target disk mode, but they do have the similar Mac sharing mode you access by booting the Mac into recovery mode. But I guess that about wraps it up. I knew this would eventually happen, especially since it's officially that 13-inch Unibody MacBook Pro only supports up to macOS 10.15 Catalina from over 4 years ago. But as always, keep on tuning to this YouTube channel to see whatever I do next.